G.K. Chesterton once said, "Fairy tales don't teach children that dragons exist. Children already know dragons exist. Fairy tales teach children that dragons can be slain." It's well understood by anyone who's ever had any occasion to practice any sort of big-picture strategy that identifying a problem and actually effectively addressing it are two entirely separate sets of skills. It's equally well known to those who've had to manage a complex system that complexity yields diminishing returns at scale, and that there's a hard mechanical limit to how far any system can grow without requiring an infinite amount of extra energy just to hold itself together. If you've hung around the YouTube nerd spheres, you'll likely recognize this as the guiding force behind things like the Schwarzschild radius, the volume at which a given amount of mass converts into a black hole, and the square-cube law. This then leads us into the question, quis observae observators? Who watches the watchers? I've said before, and I'll stand by until somebody actually comes up with a better counter-argument than money counter go. It is not physically or rationally possible to be both pro-business and pro-nationalist at the same time. A nation, just like a market, is just people doing people things. The interests of business are always contradictory to the interests of the nation and the market, since a business always wants to maximize profit for itself, which naturally entails maximizing revenue, value extracted from the market, and reducing expenses, value delivered back out into the market. And when business grows to the point that a community, which is a culturally distinct subunit of a nation, cannot live without them, then the business effectively becomes the government, meaning it becomes impossible for government to curb the excesses of said business without neutering the community in the process. This is why the left hates capitalism as vehemently as they do. It's beyond the reach of social forcings to contain or control, meaning the problems it presents are beyond the powers of their government, or religion, institutionalism, to solve. The same as why the right hates evolutionary biology. If we're just another species of ape, not divinely inspired proto-deities, it becomes physically and logically impossible for us to manifest our transcendent destinies. But that's a whole different rant for a different time. For right now, the point I'm trying to bully us towards is this. Humans hate ambiguity since it makes us powerless. But we also hate emergent phenomena, as these make us powerless in a different way. I've come to the conclusion that the real horror of cosmic horror isn't that we can't understand the eldritch entities that we're confronted with. It's that even if we do understand them, we're still powerless before them. And so all that knowledge does is inform us of how completely and utterly boned we are. Thus, we need to invent psychodramatic narratives to salve our anxieties, to plug up the holes in our awareness, which is where religions ultimately come from. It's been said, though I can't recall by whom, that if you go to a doctor with a headache, he'll prescribe you medicine. If you go to a priest with the same problem, he'll want to give you an exorcism. And if you consult a psychologist, he'll say you have undiagnosed trauma. The common denominator here is that nobody, especially not those in any kind of authority position, wants to admit to having problems they can't solve, as that would be to admit to having limits to their power, and thus would expose themselves and their professions to doubt, and would thus leave them vulnerable to competition. So they reframe or repackage existing queries into a format they do have answers for. Like Nick said near the end of Zootopia,
"You want to look smart, answer their question with your own question and then answer that question."
But it's not just institutions who fall prey to the evil king fallacy. You see, in addition to being scared little monkeys, humans are also lazy. We don't like thinking or working any harder than we absolutely need to in order to solve a given problem. Therefore, if we're presented an opportunity to kill several birds with one blast, we're usually going to seize upon it so long as the odds of it blowing up in our faces is relatively low. After all, this is the whole reason we have the power to reason in the first place. In a word, to promote efficiency, to limit our expenditures of invaluable time and energy to only those activities which are most likely to produce meaningful results. Though the inevitable consequence of this is that reason tends to prioritize short-term over long-term investments, since the further your projections are cast, the less reliable they are due to the compounding variables. There's that old infinite complexity thing rearing its ugly head again, but you'll notice that I still haven't actually addressed the title of the video. What exactly is the evil king fallacy? In the simplest terms possible, it says that simple people want simple solutions to complex problems. An evil king, while not an easy obstacle to overcome if you're not secretly the chosen one, is relatively straightforward and intuitive. Simply kill the evil king, replace him with a good king, and voila. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, and we can all head back to the Shire with our bags full of loot to have a good round of cheers by the fire with Bilbo. This is why conspiracy theories are so popular. And it's why so many people are so ready to believe that emergent plagues on our modern societies, such as population collapse and economic recession, were planned events. When in reality, as George Carlin correctly assessed,
you don't need a formal conspiracy when interests converge.
every billionaire and politician in the world doesn't need to secretly be a member of some world-spanning demonic cabal. Nor does every senior executive of every single influential group on the planet need to be a cynical, calculated Machiavellian mastermind to secretly be working against the overall best interests of the lands, the nations, the cultures, the world they're supposedly placed on their senior-most pedestals to protect and serve. Just that they all want to own the entire universe, and they don't care who or what they have to destroy to get it. It doesn't need to be that every scientist and researcher since the invention of science was invisibly colluding behind the scenes to prove you wrong. Just that each and every one of them shared the personal incentive to keep their job and the shared willingness to betray their abstract oaths and principles in the name of keeping roofs over their heads and food in their fridge. The bottom line here is that nobody wants to admit to having problems they or the powers they ally themselves with can't solve, since this would mean admitting a lack of power and so would open an unresolvable paradox which the human mind isn't equipped to handle. So they do the next best thing. They brush all their unsolvable baggage into a pile and either shovel it under the nearest convenient rug, or, should it prove too mountainous to cover up, they slap a suit of black armor on it, give it an ominous title, and presto, one monstrous tyrant ready for slaying. The problem is that the fallacy of the evil king is not the existence of the evil king itself, but the implied existence of a good king to replace him with. This is what Orwell was trying to teach us with his Animal Farm, and I think it's what Trump's slowly starting to realize in his presidency. No king rules alone. You have to abide by the rules of the game you're actually playing, or you will lose. No amount of regulatory magic, social alchemy, or religious or cultural hocus pocus will ever fully alleviate the unimpeachable fact that freedom from all restrictions does not mean freedom from consequences. But again, that's a whole different spiel for a different video. Leave your thoughts below, and of course, don't forget to do all the other YouTube stuff while you're there. Consult the on-screen fun box for ways to support me or my extracurricular endeavors. And until next we meet, my friends, as always, stay safe, stay sane, and always remember, anyone who's selling you a dream is just trying to put you to sleep. Peace be upon you.